The dust settled around Clara's boots as she stepped onto the porch of her father's saloon. Another scorching day in Red Canyon was drawing to a close, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. She wiped her brow with the back of her hand, leaving a smudge of dirt across her sun-kissed skin. At 23, Clara had spent her entire life in this unforgiving desert town, watching drifters come and go like tumbleweeds in the wind. That evening felt different somehow. The air carried an electric charge that made the hairs on her arms stand up. She couldn't explain it, but something was coming. Something that would change everything. He rode in just as the sun kissed the horizon. Clara noticed him immediately because everyone in Red Canyon noticed strangers. But this man commanded attention in a way that went beyond mere curiosity. He sat tall in his saddle, shoulders broad and imposing, his dark hat pulled low over his eyes. Even from a distance, Clara could feel the dangerous energy radiating from him like heat from a forge. The stranger dismounted with fluid grace, tying his black stallion to the hitching post outside the saloon. When he finally looked up, Clara's breath caught in her throat. His face was all hard angles and rough edges, weathered by years under the brutal sun. A scar cut through his left eyebrow, giving him a perpetually intense expression. But it was his eyes that truly captured her. They were the color of steel, sharp and penetrating, holding secrets and stories she desperately wanted to know. Their gazes locked for a heartbeat that stretched into eternity. Clara felt her pulse quicken, her mouth going dry. She'd never experienced such an immediate, visceral reaction to another human being. It terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. "We're open," she managed to say, her voice steadier than she felt. The corner of his mouth lifted in something that wasn't quite a smile. "Good. I could use a drink." His voice was deep and rough, like gravel underfoot. It sent shivers down her spine despite the evening heat. Clara led him inside, acutely aware of his presence behind her. The saloon was half full with the usual crowd of ranch hands and miners, but they all fell silent as the stranger entered. He seemed oblivious to their stares, his attention fixed entirely on Clara. She moved behind the bar, grateful for the solid wood between them. "What can I get you?" "Whiskey." "Leave the bottle." Clara poured with practiced ease, sliding the glass across the scarred wooden surface. His hand reached out to take it, and she noticed his knuckles were bruised and scabbed. This was a man who knew violence intimately. "You got a name, stranger?" she asked, trying to sound casual. He downed the whiskey in one smooth motion before answering. "Jack Dalton." The name meant nothing to her, but from the sudden tension in the room, it clearly meant something to others. She heard whispered conversations starting up behind her, nervous glances exchanged. "Should I know that name?" Clara asked, meeting his intense gaze. Jack studied her for a long moment, as if deciding how much to reveal. "Depends on what you know about outlaws and bounty hunters." Clara's heart skipped. "Which one are you?" "Both." "Neither. It's complicated." He poured himself another drink, his eyes never leaving hers. "What's your name, beautiful?" Heat flooded her cheeks. "Clara Brennan. My father owns this place." "Lucky man, having a daughter like you around." The word should have sounded like a line, something meaningless said to countless women in countless saloons. But the way Jack said it, with that rough sincerity in his voice and hunger in his eyes, made it feel like gospel truth. Before Clara could respond, the saloon doors burst open with a crash. 3 men stormed in, guns drawn, their faces twisted with rage and determination. "Jack Dalton," the tallest one shouted. "You're a dead man." Everything happened in a blur. Jack moved with lightning speed, overturning the table beside him for cover as bullets started flying. Clara screamed, ducking behind the bar as glass shattered around her. The other patrons scattered like frightened birds, shouting and cursing as they scrambled for safety. Through the chaos, Clara heard Jack's gun firing with methodical precision. The acrid smell of gunpowder filled the air, mixing with the coppery scent of blood. Her heart hammered against her ribs so hard she thought it might break through. Then, suddenly, silence fell like a curtain. Clara cautiously raised her head, peering over the bar. The 3 men lay motionless on the floor, their weapons scattered around them. Jack stood in the center of the room, gun still drawn, breathing hard. A line of blood trickled from a cut on his temple, but otherwise he seemed unharmed. His eyes found hers immediately. "You all right?" Clara nodded, unable to find her voice. She'd just witnessed the stranger kill 3 men without hesitation, protecting himself and everyone in the saloon. She should be terrified. She should be calling for the sheriff. Instead, all she felt was an overwhelming need to touch him, to reassure herself he was real and alive. Jack holstered his gun and walked toward the bar. Clara stood on shaking legs, her whole body trembling with adrenaline. When he reached her, he raised one calloused hand to her face, his thumb gently brushing her cheek. "I'm sorry you had to see that," he said softly. And just like that, with 3 dead men on the floor and chaos surrounding them, Clara Brennan fell completely and irrevocably in love with Jack Dalton. Clara insisted on tending to Jack's wounds despite his protests. She led him upstairs to her private quarters above the saloon, ignoring the knowing looks from the remaining patrons and her father's worried expression. Her hands still shook as she gathered clean cloth and whiskey for disinfecting, but she forced herself to focus on the task at hand rather than the 3 bodies being dragged from the saloon below. Jack sat on the edge of her simple bed, watching her with those intense steel eyes. The small room suddenly felt impossibly intimate. Clara had never brought a man up here before. Her father would be furious when he found out, but she didn't care. Something about Jack made her want to break every rule she'd ever followed. "This might sting," she warned, dampening the cloth with whiskey. "I've had worse." Clara believed him. As she gently cleaned the cut on his temple, she noticed other scars marking his skin. A jagged line across his collarbone. What looked like a bullet wound on his shoulder. Each one told a story of survival, of a life lived on the knife's edge between danger and death. "Who were those men?" she asked quietly. Jack's jaw tightened. "Brothers of a man I killed 2 years ago. They've been hunting me ever since." "Did he deserve it? The man you killed?" "He was about to murder a woman and her children for a piece of land. So yeah, he deserved it." Jack's voice was hard, matter-of-fact. "But that doesn't matter to family. Blood calls for blood, regardless of right or wrong." Clara finished cleaning the wound and sat back, studying him. In the soft lamplight, Jack looked almost vulnerable despite his obvious strength. She could see the weight he carried, the toll that violence and constant vigilance had taken on him. "How long have you been running?" she asked. "Too long." He reached up, catching her wrist gently in his large hand. "But I'm tired, Clara. So damn tired." The raw honesty in his voice broke something open inside her. Clara knew she should be sensible, should protect her heart from a man who could only bring trouble. Instead, she found herself leaning closer, drawn by a force stronger than logic or self-preservation. "Then stop running," she whispered. Jack's eyes darkened with desire and something deeper, more complicated. "You don't know what you're saying. Men like me, we don't get happy endings. We don't get to keep the things we want. Maybe you've never wanted something badly enough to fight for it." A low sound rumbled in his chest, somewhere between a laugh and a groan. "You're playing with fire, beautiful. Then let me burn." The words had barely left her lips before Jack pulled her against him, his mouth crashing down on hers with desperate intensity. Clara gasped against his lips, her hands gripping his shoulders for balance as sensation overwhelmed her. She'd been kissed before, but never like this. Never with such consuming hunger, such raw need. Jack's hands tangled in her hair as he deepened the kiss, tasting and claiming her with thorough attention. Clara melted into him, her body responding with instincts she didn't know she possessed. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, she felt fundamentally changed, as if something sleeping inside her had finally awakened. "We can't do this," Jack said, even as his hands remained on her waist, holding her close. "I'm no good for you, Clara. I'll only bring you pain." "Too late," she replied, touching his scarred face with trembling fingers. "You already got under my skin, Jack Dalton. Might as well accept it." He closed his eyes, leaning into her touch like a man starving for gentleness. "Your father's going to kill me." "Probably. But I'm worth it, aren't I?" Jack's eyes opened, blazing with such intensity that Clara's breath caught. "You're worth everything. That's the problem." They stayed like that for a long moment, wrapped in each other, suspended in possibility. Outside, Clara could hear the sounds of the saloon returning to normal. Life going on despite the violence that had erupted. But in this small room, the world had narrowed to just the two of them. A sharp knock on the door shattered the moment. "Clara. Open this door right now." Her father. Clara sighed, reluctantly pulling away from Jack's embrace. "I have to face him." Jack stood, his hand moving instinctively to his gun. "I'll handle it." "No." Clara placed her hand over his, stopping him. "This is my choice, my fight. Let me deal with my father." Pride flickered in Jack's eyes. He nodded slowly, releasing his weapon. Clara straightened her dress and opened the door to find her father, Sheriff Brennan, red-faced and furious. "What in God's name do you think you're doing?" he demanded, glaring past her at Jack. That man just killed 3 people in my saloon. That man saved everyone in your saloon, Clara countered, keeping her voice steady. Those men came looking for blood. Jack only defended himself. Jack, is it? Her father's eyes narrowed. You know who this is, Clara? Jack Dalton has more blood on his hands than you can imagine. He's dangerous. I know exactly who he is, Papa. Then you know he needs to leave. Tonight. Before more trouble comes looking for him. Clara felt Jack tense behind her, knew he was preparing to do exactly that. It would be easier for him to walk away, to keep moving as he always had. But Clara wasn't going to let him disappear into the night without a fight. He stays, she said firmly. At least for tonight. He's injured and exhausted. Whatever else needs to be decided can wait until morning. Her father stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. You're making a mistake, daughter. Maybe. But it's my mistake to make. Sheriff Brennan looked between them, frustration and worry warring on his weathered face. Finally, he sighed in defeat. One night. But come morning, we talk. All of us. After her father left, Clara locked the door and turned back to Jack. He watched her with an expression she couldn't quite read, something between admiration and concern. You're stubborn, he observed. You have no idea. Clara crossed back to him, suddenly bold. Now, where were we before we were interrupted? Jack caught her around the waist, pulling her flush against his hard body. You're going to be the death of me, woman. Clara smiled, wrapping her arms around his neck. What a way to go. This time when they kissed, it was slower, deeper, full of promise and possibility. Clara knew tomorrow would bring difficult decisions and hard truths. But tonight, wrapped in Jack Dalton's arms, she let herself believe that sometimes the most dangerous choice could also be the right one. Dawn broke cold and unforgiving over Red Canyon. Clara woke to find Jack already awake, sitting by her small window and watching the street below with the vigilance of a man who'd survived by never letting his guard down. She studied him in the pale morning light, memorizing the strong line of his jaw, the way his hair fell across his forehead, the tension in his broad shoulders. How long have you been up? She asked softly. Jack turned, his expression softening when he saw her. Couple hours. Old habits. Clara rose, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders against the morning chill. She moved to stand beside him, following his gaze to the quiet town below. What are you watching for? More trouble. It always comes. He reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers. Those 3 men yesterday won't be the last. The Taggart family is large and vengeful. They won't stop until I'm dead or they are. Fear clutched at Clara's heart, but she pushed it aside. Then we'll face them together. Jack pulled her onto his lap, holding her close. Clara, you don't understand what you're signing up for. This isn't some romantic adventure. People die around me. Good people who don't deserve it. Tell me, she said, touching his face gently. Tell me what haunts you. For a long moment, Jack said nothing. Then, slowly, the story began to pour out. He told her about his childhood, growing up wild and angry after his parents were murdered by land thieves. About joining a gang as a teenager, seeking belonging and purpose in violence. About the night he witnessed his gang leader kill an innocent family, and how that moment changed everything. I killed him, Jack said quietly. My own gang leader. The man who'd been like a father to me. But he'd crossed a line I couldn't stomach. After that, I was on the run from everyone. The law wanted me for my crimes. My old gang wanted me dead for betrayal. And the families of the men I'd hurt wanted revenge. So you became a bounty hunter, Clara said, understanding dawning. To atone. To survive. To maybe do some good with the skills I had. Jack's laugh was bitter. But you can't wash blood away with more blood. I know that now. Clara turned in his lap to face him fully, cupping his scarred face in both hands. You're not that angry boy anymore, Jack. You've been trying to make things right. That has to count for something. Does it? His steel eyes searched hers desperately. Because from where I'm sitting, all I've done is leave a trail of bodies behind me. And now I'm putting you in danger too. The most precious thing I've ever found, and I'm going to get you killed. No, Clara said fiercely. You're not responsible for other people's choices. Those men yesterday chose to come after you. The Taggart family chose revenge over justice. You're not making them do anything. Jack pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. I don't deserve you. That's not your decision to make. Clara held him tightly, feeling the tremor in his strong body. This dangerous man, this killer and survivor, was breaking apart in her arms, and she loved him even more for his vulnerability. They stayed like that until a sharp knock interrupted them. Clara's father entered, his expression grave. "We've got a problem," Sheriff Brennan announced. "Word spread about yesterday. There's at least a dozen Taggart men riding toward Red Canyon. They'll be here by noon." Jack was on his feet instantly, his warrior instincts taking over. "I'll ride out. Meet them before they reach town." "That's suicide," Clara protested, grabbing his arm. "You can't take on 12 men alone." "I'm not letting them bring war to your doorstep." "Then we'll make a stand here," Sheriff Brennan said, surprising them both. "Red Canyon takes care of its own. And whether I like it or not, my daughters claimed you. That makes you one of ours." Jack stared at the older man. "You'd risk your town for me?" "I'm risking my town for her." The sheriff jerked his chin toward Clara. "She's stubborn like her mother, God rest her soul. Once she decides something, there's no changing her mind. And she's decided on you." Clara felt tears prick her eyes. Her father had always been overprotective, sometimes infuriatingly so. But beneath his stern exterior beat a heart that loved her more than life itself. "Thank you, Papa," she whispered. He nodded gruffly. "Don't thank me yet. We might all be dead by sunset." He turned to Jack. "Now, you know these Taggart men. How do they fight?" Jack's expression hardened, becoming all business. "Hard and mean. They don't care about casualties or collateral damage. They'll want to make an example of me, which means they'll try to take me alive if possible. Torture first, then execution." "Over my dead body," Clara said. Both men looked at her, and Jack's eyes flashed with emotion. "That's exactly what I'm afraid of." The next few hours passed in tense preparation. Jack and Sheriff Brennan fortified the saloon, boarding windows and setting up defensive positions. Clara helped arm the townspeople willing to fight. Not everyone wanted to risk themselves for a stranger, but enough did. The miners who'd been drinking in the saloon yesterday and owed their lives to Jack's quick action. The ranch hands who respected courage when they saw it. Even old Doc Morrison, who claimed his shooting days were behind him but showed up with a rifle anyway. As noon approached, Clara found Jack checking his weapons with methodical precision. She changed into practical clothes, pants and a shirt borrowed from the general store, her hair tied back. If there was going to be fighting, she refused to be hampered by skirts. "You know how to shoot?" Jack asked, noticing her determination. "Papa taught me. I'm not as fast as you, but I can hit what I aim at." Jack handed her a pistol, his fingers lingering on hers. "Stay behind cover. Don't take unnecessary risks." "And Clara?" He pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. "If things go bad, if it looks like we're going to lose, you run. You get on a horse and you ride as far away from here as possible. Promise me." "I'm not leaving you." "Promise me." His voice was harsh with fear. "I can face death, Clara. I've been expecting it for years. But I cannot watch you die. That would destroy me. So please, if you love me at all, promise you'll save yourself." Tears streamed down Clara's face. "I promise," she whispered, knowing it was a lie. She would never leave him, not even to save herself. But she gave him the words he needed to hear. Jack kissed her then, deep and desperate, pouring everything he couldn't say into that kiss. "Stay inside me fully," Clara panted when they broke apart, pressing her hand over his heart. "Right here. No matter what happens." "Only you," Jack growled, his eyes blazing with love and anguish. "There's only ever been you. In all my dark years, you're the only light I've found." The thunder of hooves interrupted them. Through the barricaded windows, they could see the Taggart men arriving, a dozen armed riders surrounding the saloon. Their leader, a massive man with cold eyes and a cruel mouth, dismounted slowly. "Jack Dalton," he shouted. "I'm Luther Taggart. You killed my baby brother, and now you're going to pay. Come out now, and we'll make it quick. Stay in there, and we'll burn you all out." Jack squeezed Clara's hand once, then moved toward the door. But Sheriff Brennan blocked his path. "Not alone," the sheriff said simply. "We do this together." Jack nodded, and together they stepped out to face the Taggart gang, with Clara and the armed townspeople behind them, ready for whatever came next. The standoff stretched like a taut wire ready to snap. Luther Taggart sat astride his horse, surrounded by his men, all of them armed and eager for violence. Clara's heart hammered against her ribs as she watched Jack stand tall and unflinching before them, her father at his side. "You want me, Luther?" Jack called out. Then let's settle this like men. You and me, one-on-one. Leave these people out of it. Luther's laugh was ugly and mocking. You think I give a damn about honor? My brothers are dead because of you. Justice doesn't bring them back, but watching you suffer might help. Your brothers were going to murder innocent people, Jack replied, his voice carrying across the dusty street. They were cowards who preyed on the weak. I'd do it again. Rage contorted Luther's face. Kill them all, he roared. Everything erupted into chaos. The Taggart men opened fire, bullets slamming into the saloon's walls and barricades. Clara dropped behind cover, her borrowed pistol heavy in her shaking hands. Around her, the townspeople returned fire, the air filling with gun smoke and the deafening crack of rifles. Jack moved like a force of nature, his guns blazing with deadly accuracy. Clara watched in horrified awe as he dropped two men in rapid succession, then dove behind a water trough as bullets chewed up the ground where he'd been standing. Her father fought with the steady competence of an experienced lawman, his shots measured and precise. But they were outnumbered and outgunned. One by one, the townspeople fell back, overwhelmed by the Taggart's assault. Old Doc Morrison took a bullet to the shoulder and collapsed with a cry. Two miners went down, one moving, one horribly still. Fall back. Sheriff Brennan shouted. Everyone inside. They retreated into the saloon, dragging the wounded with them. Jack was the last through the door, covering their withdrawal with rapid fire. A bullet grazed his arm, drawing blood, but he didn't even flinch. Once inside, they barricaded the door and took up positions at the windows. We can't hold them off forever, one of the ranch hands said, fear thick in his voice. They'll burn us out just like Luther said. Then we make every shot count, Jack replied grimly, reloading with practiced efficiency. Make them pay for every inch. Clara found herself next to him at the window, firing at the shapes moving through the gunsmoke outside. She'd never shot at a living person before, and the reality of it made her sick. But when she saw one of the Taggart men lighting a torch, preparing to set the saloon ablaze, she didn't hesitate. Her bullet struck true, and the man fell, the torch sputtering out in the dust. Good shot, Jack said, pride and pain mixing in his voice. But Clara, you need to go. There's a back way out, through the cellar. Take it now while you still can. I told you, I'm not leaving. Damn it, woman. Jack grabbed her shoulders, his steel eyes desperate. I can't protect you and fight them both. Please, Clara. Give me this one thing. Let me know you're safe. Before Clara could respond, an explosion rocked the building. The Taggarts had thrown dynamite against the side wall, blowing a gaping hole in the saloon's defenses. Smoke and dust filled the air. Through the chaos, Clara could hear Luther's triumphant shout. Get in there. Take Dalton alive. The Taggart men poured through the breach. Hand-to-hand combat erupted, brutal and desperate. Clara fired until her gun clicked empty, then grabbed a broken chair leg as a weapon. She saw her father go down, blood streaming from a cut on his head, and screamed his name. Jack fought like a demon possessed, his fists and gun devastating any man who came near him. But even he couldn't be everywhere at once. A Taggart man grabbed Clara from behind, his arm crushing her throat. She struggled wildly, unable to breathe, darkness creeping into her vision. Then Jack was there, his face a mask of pure rage. He hit her attacker with such force that the man's jaw shattered audibly. Don't you touch her, he roared, standing over Clara protectively. Anyone who wants her goes through me first. 3 men rushed him at once. Jack fought magnificently, but numbers overwhelmed him. They dragged him down, fists and boots raining blows. Clara tried to reach him, but someone grabbed her again, holding her back. No, she screamed, fighting uselessly against her captor. Jack. Luther Taggart strode through the smoke and carnage, his face split in a vicious grin. Finally. Thought you'd never stop fighting, Dalton. He kicked Jack hard in the ribs. Now the real fun begins. Through swollen eyes, Jack looked past Luther to Clara. The love and desperation in his gaze broke her heart. I'm sorry, he mouthed silently. Touching, Luther sneered. Your woman can watch you die. Make it a real memorable experience for her. He raised his gun, pointing it at Jack's head. Clara closed her eyes, unable to watch, her whole world crumbling. Then new gunfire erupted, different from before. Clara's eyes flew open to see riders pouring into Red Canyon, at least 20 of them, attacking the Taggart men with coordinated precision. Luther spun around, confusion and rage on his face. What the hell? The newcomers wore marshal badges. Federal marshals, Clara realized with dawning hope. They swept through the Taggart men like an avenging storm, their superior numbers and tactics quickly turning the tide. Within minutes, it was over. The surviving Taggart men were being rounded up, disarmed, and bound. The lead marshal, a grizzled man with a weather-beaten face, dismounted and approached Jack, who was being helped to his feet by Clara and her father. "Jack Dalton," the marshal said. "Been looking for you for a while now." Jack straightened despite his injuries, resignation in his eyes. "Marshal Thompson. Figured you'd catch up to me eventually." Clara stepped between them, her chin raised defiantly. "If you're here to arrest him, you'll have to go through all of us. Jack saved this town. He's a hero." Thompson's stern expression softened slightly. "Easy, miss. I'm not here to arrest him." He reached into his coat and pulled out an official-looking document. "I'm here to offer him a pardon." Stunned silence fell over the group. Jack stared at the marshal as if he'd spoken in a foreign language. "What? Presidential pardon, signed and sealed. All crimes forgiven, record wiped clean." Thompson handed the document to Jack. "You've been tracking down some of the worst outlaws in the territories for years, Dalton. Bringing them to justice when no one else could. The government wants to make it official. They want you working for them, legitimate-like." Jack's hands trembled as he unfolded the document, reading it with disbelieving eyes. "I don't understand. Why now?" "Because we need men like you. Men who know how outlaws think, who can move in their world. And because someone high up decided you'd earned a second chance." Thompson glanced at Luther Taggart, being dragged away in chains. "We've been tracking the Taggart gang for months. When we heard they were coming here after you, we figured it was the perfect opportunity to take them down and find you at the same time." Clara felt tears streaming down her face, but for the first time all day, they were tears of joy. She threw her arms around Jack, holding him tight despite his injuries. "You're free," she whispered against his chest. "Jack, you're finally free." Jack's arms wrapped around her, his voice rough with emotion. "Stay inside me fully, Clara. Tell me I'm not dreaming this." "Only you," she replied, pulling back to look into his eyes. "This is real. We're real. And we have a future now." Jack kissed her then, deep and desperate and full of hope, while the people of Red Canyon cheered around them. 3 months later, Clara stood on the porch of her newly built home, watching the sunset paint Red Canyon in shades of amber and rose. So much had changed since that violent day when Jack Dalton rode into her life. The saloon had been rebuilt, stronger than before. The town had prospered, its reputation as the place where Jack Dalton made his stand drawing curious visitors and new settlers. And Clara herself had transformed from a saloon keeper's daughter into a federal marshal's wife. The wedding had been simple but beautiful, held at the small church on the hill overlooking the town. Her father had walked her down the aisle with tears in his eyes, finally accepting that Jack was the man who could protect and cherish his precious daughter. The whole town had celebrated, grateful to the couple who'd helped save them and given Red Canyon a story worth telling. Now, Clara ran her hand over her still flat belly, hugging the secret she'd discovered just that morning close to her heart. A baby. She and Jack were going to have a baby. The thought filled her with equal parts joy and terror. Would their child inherit Jack's steel-gray eyes? Would he or she grow up hearing stories about their father's wild past? "You're smiling," Jack's deep voice said from behind her. Strong arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her back against his solid chest. "What are you thinking about?" Clara leaned into him, savoring his warmth and strength. "The future. Our future." Jack pressed a kiss to her temple. "Good thoughts, I hope?" "The best thoughts." Clara turned in his arms, studying the man she loved. The past 3 months had been good to Jack. The haunted look had faded from his eyes, replaced by something approaching peace. He still took on dangerous assignments for the marshals, hunting down wanted men, but he always came home to her. He'd found purpose and redemption in equal measure. "I have something to tell you," Clara said softly, suddenly nervous despite knowing Jack would be thrilled. Jack's expression grew serious, his hands tightening on her waist. "What is it? Are you all right?" "I'm more than all right." Clara took his hand and placed it on her belly. "We're going to have a baby, Jack. You're going to be a father." For a long moment, Jack just stared at her, his face cycling through shock, disbelief, and finally overwhelming joy. Then he let out a whoop of pure happiness, lifting Clara off her feet and spinning her around. When he set her down, his eyes were wet with tears. "A baby," he breathed, cradling her face in his calloused hands. "Clara, I never thought I'd get to have this. A family. A real home. You've given me everything I never knew I needed. We've given each other everything, Clara corrected, her own tears falling freely now. You taught me what it means to be brave, to fight for what matters. You showed me that love isn't safe or comfortable, but wild and worth every risk. Jack kissed her with infinite tenderness, pouring all his love and devotion into that kiss. When they broke apart, both were smiling through their tears. I'm scared, Jack admitted quietly. What if I mess this up? What if I'm not good enough to be someone's father? Clara touched his scarred face gently. You'll be an amazing father. You've spent years protecting people, fighting for what's right. You'll protect and fight for our child even more fiercely. And Jack, you won't be doing it alone. We're a team, remember? The best team. Jack pulled her close again, resting his chin on top of her head. I love you, Clara Dalton. More than I thought possible to love anyone. I love you too. And I'm so proud of you, of everything you've become. They stood together on the porch, wrapped in each other's arms, as the last light faded from the sky. In the distance, Clara could hear the sounds of Red Canyon settling in for the night. Piano music drifted from the saloon where her father was probably entertaining customers with yet another embellished version of the Great Taggart Showdown, as he'd taken to calling it. Dogs barked, children laughed, life went on in its beautiful, mundane way. Tell me something, Jack said after a while. That day in the saloon, when you first saw me, did you have any idea what you were getting into? Clara laughed softly. Not even a little bit. I just knew I'd never felt anything like what I felt when our eyes met. It was like lightning striking, but in the best possible way. Same for me. Jack's voice was rough with emotion. I'd been alone for so long, running from my past, convinced I didn't deserve happiness. Then there you were, this beautiful, fierce woman who looked at me and saw something worth saving. I saw the man you really were, underneath all the scars and damage. I saw your strength and your honor and your capacity for love. Clara pulled back to look up at him. And I wasn't wrong, was I? You saved my life, Clara. Not just that day with the Taggarts, but my soul. You gave me a reason to stop running, to finally face my demons and become someone worthy of you. You were always worthy. You just couldn't see it yet. Jack kissed her again, slow and deep, full of promise and passion. When they finally went inside their home, closing the door on the cooling night, they moved together toward their bedroom with the easy intimacy of true partners. Later, wrapped in each other's arms in the darkness, Clara traced the scars on Jack's chest, each one a story, a battle survived, a piece of the journey that led him to her. Do you ever regret it? She asked quietly. Taking the pardon, settling down here with me? Do you miss the freedom of the open road? Jack caught her hand, bringing it to his lips. Not for a single second. I spent years on that road, Clara, and you know what I found? Nothing but dust and blood and loneliness. Real freedom isn't running. It's having something. 1:56 p.m. Worth staying for. Someone worth building a life with. We're going to build a beautiful life, Clara said with quiet certainty. For us and for our baby. A life full of love and laughter and second chances. And maybe a few more adventures along the way, Jack added with a grin she could hear in his voice. Can't have you getting bored with me. Clara laughed, snuggling closer to him. Never. You're the most exciting thing that ever happened to me, Jack Dalton. And you always will be. As sleep claimed them both, they lay entwined, two souls who'd found each other against all odds. The former outlaw and the saloon keeper's daughter, their love story written in gunsmoke and passion, in courage and redemption. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new adventures. Jack would ride out on martial business, and Clara would continue helping her father run the saloon while planning for their baby's arrival. But tonight, they were simply Jack and Clara, husband and wife, partners in all things, wrapped in the profound peace that comes from finally finding home in another person's arms. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead, ancient and indifferent to human drama. But in that small house in Red Canyon, love blazed bright enough to challenge the darkness. And in the morning, when Jack woke before dawn as he always did and found Clara still sleeping peacefully beside him, he would take a moment to marvel at the miracle of it all. From outlaw to lawman. From running to staying. From loneliness to love. His journey had been long and brutal and marked by violence, but every step had led him here, to this woman, to this life, to this chance at forever. Jack pressed a kiss to Clara's sleeping forehead, his hand resting protectively on her belly where their child grew. Thank you, he whispered to whatever force in the universe had given him this impossible gift. Then he settled back down, pulling Clara closer, and for the first time in his entire violent life, Jack Dalton slept without nightmares, dreaming instead of a future bright with promise and redimant with the fierce, unbreakable love of the woman who'd saved him. The Wild West sun would rise again tomorrow, harsh and unforgiving as always. But it would rise on a man redeemed, a love triumphant, and a family beginning their story together. And that, Jack thought as sleep reclaimed him, was the greatest victory of all.